So, welcome to this session on branchial arches. The branchial arches, also called as pharyngeal arches, and this pharyngeal arches kind of constitutes the entire, almost the entire development of head face. Now, what happens is in adult, we see a chin like this, and then we see the neck, and then this is the chest. But in a developing person, if this is the chin and this is the chest wall, a series of arches develop like this, okay, in the developing neck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so our neck during development is like this. This is arch number 1, arch number 2, arch number 3. The neck is not smooth. Now each arch, if you see a cross section of an arch, the arches, if I take a section like this and see, the arches appear like this. Okay, so these are the arches on one side, and these are the arches on the other side. Okay, now what happens is outside these arches are covered with ectoderm. These arches are covered with ectoderm. So here these are called as ectodermal clefts. Between two arches there are ectodermal clefts. On the inner side here, on the inner side here is endoderm. Okay, and so this part, these parts, these parts are called as endodermal pouches. So outside there is ectodermal cleft. Outside each pouch is covered by ectoderm. Inside there is endodermal pouches. Okay, so we now talked about ectodermal cleft. Then we talked about endodermal pouches. Endodermal pouches. Then inside each arch, there is a artery. Okay, there is a artery. There is a cartilage. There is a cartilage. There is a nerve. So artery, cartilage, nerve, and there is a muscular component. Okay, so now whenever we are going to study each arch, we are going to study that muscles which are being there. So inside each arch there is a muscular component. So that muscular component will give rise to some muscles. These muscles will be supplied by a nerve. Then there will be cartilage. And then there will be a artery also. So whenever we study branchial arches, we have to talk about what happens to each ectodermal cleft, what happens to the endodermal pouches, what happens to the muscle, which muscles develop from each arch, what is the nerve of that arch, what is the cartilage, and what components develop from each cartilage and artery. Okay, so now let us first start talking about ectodermal cleft. We said that on the outside of these pharyngeal arches, there is cleft. So from cleft number 1, from cleft number 1 develops external auditory canal. External auditory canal. Now what happens to cleft number 2, cleft number 3, cleft number 4, 5? Okay, so this is cleft number 3, 4, 5, cleft number 6. So what happens is this is arch 1, arch 2. The arch 2 overgrows like this. Arch 2 overgrows. So arch 2 overgrows and buries all the clefts. It buries all the clefts. And that's how our neck becomes smooth. Why our neck? Otherwise, our neck would have been showing arches like this. So what happens is the second arch grows like this and buries all the cleft. If one of the cleft, suppose cleft number 3 over here, or cleft number 2 over here, even spite of getting buried, the cleft remains. Okay, if a cleft is not buried, so then this can lead to branchial cyst. So inside the neck there will be a swelling from birth, branchial cyst. That cyst may open to the exterior, so that time it is called as branchial sinus. That cyst may open to the exterior and inside to into the pharynx. That time it is called as branchial fistula. So what is a branchial cyst? So this is one of the ectodermal cleft which persists. Ideally, the second arch overgrows and all the clefts are buried. So if one of the cleft persists, especially the second cleft persists, so first cleft forms the external auditory canal. All remaining clefts are buried. That's the fate of the ectodermal cleft because the second arch overgrows over there. And if one of the cleft persists, it can cause branchial cyst. So branchial cyst is persistent ectodermal cleft from the second arch, and this can lead to sinus. Sinus means it's open to the exterior. If it also opens to the interior, it is called as branchial fistula. So that's the plate of the ectodermal cleft. Now we will talk about endodermal pouches. Endodermal pouches. What happens to the endodermal pouch? Now the endodermal pouches, so again to show you, inside here is a pouch like this. Like outside there is cleft, inside there is a endodermal pouch. So suppose this side pouch, the first pouch goes like this. So this is the first pouch which goes deep inside the two first. This is the first pouch which goes deep inside the first and the second arch. So first arch will be here, second arch will be here. Okay, and this forms what is called as TT recess. What is TT recess? Tubotympanic recess. This tubotympanic recess from the first pouch is going to form the auditory tube. It is going to form the middle ear cavity. It is going to form the mastoid sinus. All these are developed from TT recess, tubotympanic recess. What happens to the second pouch? The second pouch has two parts, an anterior part and a posterior. So posterior part of the second pouch joins TT recess, the tubotympanic recess, and anterior part of the pouch forms tonsil. The development of the tonsil is from second endodermal pouch. Now what happens to the third pouch? The third pouch also has a posterior component and an anterior component. As this anterior component comes down as thymus. Anterior component comes down as thymus, and the posterior component is called as, because it is from the third arch, it is called as parathyroid 3. But this parathyroid 3 is pulled down by the thymus, so it forms inferior parathyroid. It forms inferior parathyroid. And then there is the fourth pouch. What develops from the fourth pouch? The fourth pouch also has an anterior and posterior component. So what develops from the fourth pouch is parathyroid 4 or the superior parathyroid. So there are superior parathyroid and inferior parathyroid. So logically speaking, superior parathyroid should be from the third arch and inferior should be from fourth arch. But what happens is the parathyroid 3, which develops from the third arch, is pulled down by the thymus, which goes into the chest wall, and therefore the inferior parathyroid is developed from the third arch and superior parathyroid is developed from the first. Also developing from the fourth arch is called something called as lateral thyroid, okay, which contributes to the C cells of the thyroid gland. Then we said that there are multiple components inside each arch, okay, and starting with, let us talk about what muscles. The first arch is also called as mandibular arch. The second arch is called as hyoid arch. The other arches don't have any names. So muscles, there are muscles developing from the first arch. The first arch muscles are, you have to remember, 4 plus 4. The 4 muscles of mastication. 4 muscles of mastication. Okay. Now, what are the 4 muscles of mastication? Masseter, then medial pterygoid, lateral pterygoid, and temporalis. So these 4 muscles develop from the first arch. Okay. The nerve of the first arch is mandibular nerve, which is a branch of trigeminal nerve. Mandibular nerve. And 4 plus 4. So what are the other 4 muscles which develop from the first arch? Apart from this, there is mylohyoid muscle. Then there is, you have to remember 2 tensors, tensor palatii and tensor tympani. Tensor palatii and tensor tympani. And mylohyoid and anterior belly of digastric. Digastric muscle, all of us know, has 2 bellies, anterior belly and posterior. So anterior belly is from the first arch. Posterior belly is from the second arch. So this is how you remember 4 plus 4, 4 muscles of mastication, that is masseter, medial pterygoid, lateral pterygoid, temporalis, plus 4 muscles of other muscles, mylohyoid, anterior belly of digastric, tensor palatii and tensor tympani, all are supplied by mandibular. Now let us talk about the second arch. The second arch gives rise to, the second arch gives rise to all the muscles of facial expressions. The muscles of facial expressions. So that will include everything, muscles around the ear, muscles around the eye, muscles around the oral cavity, muscles of the forehead, everything. And plus, apart from this, it will give rise to, like here it was 4 plus 4, which is muscles of facial expression plus 3 muscles. Okay, the muscles of facial expression plus you can say 3 to 4 other muscles, and that is stapedius of the middle ear, then stylohyoid, stapedius, stylohyoid, posterior belly of digastric. So 2S and 2P, that's how I used to remember. Posterior belly of digastric, then platysma, because this can be considered as muscles of facial expression. The occipitofrontalis muscle, all this. Okay, so here also muscles of facial expression plus 4. stapedius, stylohyoid, posterior belly of digastric, and platysma. All these are supplied by the facial nerve. So facial nerve is the nerve of the second arch. All the muscles of the facial expression, they develop from the second arch. Now let us talk about the third arch. Third arch, only one muscle develops, and that is the muscle of the pharynx. And the name of that muscle is stylopharyngeus. Stylopharyngeus muscle. And the nerve of the third arch is glossopharyngeal nerve. Glossopharyngeal nerve. Okay. The the fourth and the sixth arch. The fourth and the sixth arch, they give rise to the especially muscles of the pharynx and larynx. Okay. But the fourth arch muscle is nerve is superior laryngeal nerve. Superior laryngeal nerve, and sixth arch nerve is recurrent laryngeal nerve. Recurrent laryngeal nerve. So all the muscles of the larynx, okay, they develop from this soft palate. They develop mainly from the sixth arch. Fourth arch muscle is specifically asked to you. Of course, pharynx muscles develop from both, but the cricothyroid muscle, which is supplied by the superior laryngeal nerve, that is, to be more precise, the muscle developing. But the fourth and the sixth arch together give rise to muscles of the larynx. Okay, they give rise to muscles of the soft palate, the muscles of the pharynx. But the fourth arch muscle is nerve is superior laryngeal nerve, and sixth arch is the recurrent laryngeal nerve. The fifth arch is mostly rudimentary, doesn't give rise to any important structures as such. Okay, so first arch nerve is mandibular nerve, second arch nerve is facial nerve, third arch nerve is glossopharyngeal nerve, fourth arch nerve is superior laryngeal nerve, and sixth arch nerve is the recurrent laryngeal nerve. Now here there is one more concept about traumatic pre-traumatic nerve. Many times the nerves of a particular arch, like facial nerve, will give rise to a branch which is called as a pre-traumatic branch. Okay, which will be given to the first arch. So nerve of the second arch gives a pre-traumatic branch called as chorda tympani, which will supply tongue, which develops from the first part of the tongue developing from the first arch, supplied by the nerve of the second arch. So that means this nerve normally supplies all the structures of the second arch, but gives one branch called as pre-traumatic branch, which supplies the some structures developing from the previous arch. So this is same in here also. And in case of glossopharyngeal nerve also, it gives a pre-traumatic branch, which is called as tympanic branch, which will supply the tubotympanic recess. So tubotympanic recess develops from the second arch, but the glossopharyngeal now gives a pre-traumatic branch to the second arch. So pre-traumatic branches are given by some nerves to the previous arch, okay, and it supplies the structures of the previous arch. Now let us talk about what all structures develop from the cartilages. What are structures develop from the cartilages of the uh, various arches? So the first arch cartilage is also called as Meckel's cartilage. Is also called as Meckel's cartilage. And this Meckel's cartilage, it gives rise to malleus and incus. Okay, mainly gives rise to malleus and incus. The it also gives rise to the anterior ligament of malleus, and spinomandibular ligament. Now, the, the mandible develops around the Meckel's cartilage, doesn't develop from the Meckel's cartilage as such. but around the Meckel's cartilage. So sometimes they may talk about mandible will developing from the first arch cartilage. It develops around the Meckel's cartilage. Okay, so Meckel's cartilage gives rise to malleus, incus, anterior ligament of malleus, and sphenomandibular ligament. Now the second arch cartilage, okay, the second arch cartilage is also called as Richter's cartilage. It gives rise to all structures starting from S. So malleus incus develop from first arch cartilage. So steps develop from the second arch cartilage. Also develops styloid process. Also develops stylohyoid ligament. Stylohyoid ligament. Also develops the smaller cornu of hyoid. The hyoid has a greater cornu and smaller cornu. So smaller cornu of hyoid. Also develops the superior part of body of hyoid. Superior part of body of hyoid. Okay. So steps, styloid process, stylohyoid ligament, smaller cornu of hyoid where the stylohyoid ligament is attached, and superior part of the body of hyoid. The third part will give rise to the remaining part of the hyoid. Okay. So that is the greater cornu of the hyoid and lower part of the body of hyoid. Lower part of body. Okay. And the fourth and the sixth arch together they will give rise to the cartilages of the larynx. They will give rise to cartilages of the larynx. The fifth arch as such doesn't contribute to the cartilages of the larynx as such. Okay. Coming to the other things that develop from the pharyngeal arches. The pharyngeal arches, suppose we are showing this as the first arch. Okay. In the first arch, there develops swellings like this called as lingual swellings, which will give rise to anterior two-third of the tongue. And then here will be tuberculum impar. So these all contribute to the formation of tongue, behind which is foramen cecum, from where the thyroid diverticulum will go down. Okay. Now then there is the second arch, there is third arch, and there is fourth arch. Okay. From second, third, and the fourth arch develops a structure called as hypobranchial eminence. Hypobranchial eminence. Now what happens is the hypobranchial eminence divides afterwards into cranial and caudal part. The cranial part gives rise to posterior one-third of tongue. And caudal part, of course, there is contribution of all, third, second, third, and fourth in the whole entire thing, gives rise to epiglottis. That's how tongue and epiglottis are connected. So tongue, the anterior two-third of the tongue develops from the first arch, from the lingual swellings and tuberculum impar, and posterior one-third of the tongue develops from hypobranchial eminence. This hypobranchial eminence is formed by the swelling of the second, third, and the fourth arch. Okay. Now lower down here, the fourth and the fifth arch also form a swelling. Fifth arch, this is the only contribution of the fifth arch, which is called as ultimobronchial body. Ultimobronchial body, which again contributes to the formation of C cells of thyroid. Okay. which also contributes to the C cells of the thyroid. So as regards the arterial arches, it's a separate topic which will be dealt later on whenever you study the arterial arches. But still, for your information, the first arch artery, it forms the maxillary artery. The second arch artery forms the stapedial artery. The third arch artery, it is the one which will contribute to the formation of more of the common carotid artery and the internal carotid artery. The fourth arch artery on the right side will contribute to the subclavian artery, and on the left side it will contribute to the arch of aorta. And the fifth arch is rudimentary, and the sixth arch contributes to formation of pulmonary artery and the ductus arteriosus. Ductus arteriosus connects the arch of aorta to the pulmonary artery to the arch of aorta, so that the blood is diverted from going from the lung. The first arch artery is forms the maxillary artery, second arch forms the stapedial artery, third arch forms the common carotid artery and internal carotid artery, fourth arch on the right side forms subclavian artery and left side forms arch of aorta, sixth arch forms the pulmonary artery. So now I will revise fast about the pharyngeal arches. So our neck is not smooth like this. In a developing embryo, there are arches which are there. Each arch on the external aspect has an ectodermal cleft and an endodermal pouch. Inside each arch has a muscle, a nerve, a cartilage, and an artery. Now, what happens to the ectodermal clefts? Only the first cleft remains as external auditory canal, that is forms the ear. All other clefts, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, are buried because the second arch overgrows and buries all of them. But if it is not buried properly, and if it persists, it may persist as a branchial cyst. If that cyst is not opening anywhere, it is called cyst. If it is opening to the exterior or interior, one side if it is opening, it is called branchial sinus. If it is opening to the exterior and interior of the pharynx, because these swellings are formed in the pharyngeal wall. So inside it will open to the pharynx, and that time it will be called as branchial fistula. Now let us talk about what happens to the pouches. So outside we said there is cleft, and inside there is pouches. So these pouches also go like this. So first pouch forms the tubotympanic recess, which gives rise to auditory tube, middle ear, and mastoid. Second pouch has an anterior component which forms tonsil, and second component, the second posterior part again contributes to formation of tubotympanic recess. The third part, anterior component forms thymus, and posterior component forms parathyroid 3, which forms the inferior parathyroid. Ideally, parathyroid 3 should have been superior, but because thymus descends down, it pulls the parathyroid 3 down and it forms inferior parathyroid instead of forming superior parathyroid. The fourth arch forms the parathyroid 4 or superior parathyroid. So this you have to remember. Superior parathyroid is from the fourth arch, inferior parathyroid is from the third arch, because the thymus also develops from third arch and it pulls the parathyroid down. Then talking about the muscles which develop from each of the arches. First arch muscles 4 plus 4, 4 muscles of mastication, masseter, medial pterygoid, lateral pterygoid, temporalis plus 4, tensor palatii, tensor tympani, mylohyoid, and anterior paleo digastric. They are from the first arch. Second arch, muscles of facial expression, all muscles around the eye, ear, oral cavity, forehead plus 4, stapedius, okay, stylohyoid muscle, posterior belly of digastric. So anterior belly of digastric is from first arch, so supplied by mandibular nerve. Posterior belly of digastric is from the second arch and so supplied by the facial nerve. Then stylopharyngeus muscle is from the third arch and it is supplied by glossopharyngeal. Fourth arch and sixth arch gives rise to muscles of the larynx and pharynx. The fourth arch nerve is superior laryngeal nerve and the sixth arch now is recurrent laryngeal. Now let us talk about the various cartilages developed. Now the first arch cartilage is called as Meckel's cartilage. From it develops malleus, incus, anterior ligament of malleus, phenomandibular ligament. The mandible develops around the first cartilage. Second arch cartilage 5S, stapes, styloid process, stylohyoid ligament, smaller cornu of hyoid, superior part of body of hyoid. The third arch gives rise to the remaining part of the hyoid, the greater cornu of the hyoid and the lower part of the body of hyoid. And the fourth and the sixth arch gives rise to the cartilages of larynx. Then there are some swellings. There are some swellings which develop in each arch. The first arch develops swellings called as lingual swellings and the tuberculum impar. Together they give rise to anterior two-third of the tongue. While the second arch, third arch and fourth arch together combine to form a swelling called as hypobranchial eminence. The cranial part of the hypobranchial eminence gives rise to posterior one-third of tongue. So anterior two-third is from the first arch lingual swellings and tuberculum impar, and posterior one-third is from hypobranchial eminence. This cranial part of hypobranchial eminence, the caudal part of hypobranchial eminence gives rise to epiglottis. The fourth and the fifth arch form ultimobronchial body, which contributes to the C cells of the thyroid. Just behind the tuberculum impar is foramen caecum. The foramen caecum, from where a diverticulum goes down and thyroid gland is formed. Then coming to the arteries, arteries developing from the first arch is maxillary artery, second arch stapedial artery, third arch common carotid and internal carotid, external carotid develops as a bud, fourth arch on the right side forms subclavian artery, left side forms arch of aorta, sixth arch forms pulmonary artery on the right side, and on the left side it forms pulmonary artery and ductus arteriosus. So that's all about the structures developing from the pharyngeal arches. Thank you.